the research is out there to show what genes are expressed and how they are expressed in caloric restriction. It's pretty well known now. You know, right there for the taking. So all you have to do is look at David Sinclair's work, look at Mark Matson's work, and find which genes are expressed and how they're expressed. And then when you look like, let's say you're going to, green tea, you're going to do like, go to PubMed and look up green tea. It accelerates apoptosis. Do you want that? I don't think so.
Very interesting.
I don't think so. Why have a little, you know, some sort of little anti-cancer thing going on right there with green tea? Is that what you want? I don't think so. Not if you're doing calorie restriction correctly.
Are you going to write all this up, publish it?
Well, yes.
When?
Oh, we're working on it. Meredith and I are both working on it. Yeah.
Oh, that should be a great.
I think we'll have a lot of fun with it. But, you know.
And it's so very different from a lot of, you know, what everybody's doing here.
Well, not everybody. We're changing things. We're changing things. It's time to get the signals lined up properly.
It's just evolving gradually.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can really take it now. You know, that's what I spend my whole past couple of years doing, is tracing the way calorie restriction affects the genes and cell signaling. That's the life we live. I live a life for cell signal transduction. You know. So, at any rate, you came to the right place. You know, I mean, here at this society, the marvelous ways in which we exchange things, you know, all of this time, sharing together like this, you know. We've been talking now for 5 or 6 years, haven't we?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
I was, Robert Kirkori and I were at the Cambridge conference that Aubrey de Grey had last summer. And one of the things that was so exciting there was, and of course there were lots of talks, and this is maybe only 1 or 2 had anything to do with caloric restriction, mostly with other approaches, the engineering approach. But I was just amazed at how much progress had been done just in just the last few years. And so now you're opening up a whole new vista.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have a good time on Friday. We're already having a good time, by the way. By the way, have you seen Don Laub? He's a very exciting man. I want to go over and just say hello to him. I think he's going to join the board. But I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Yeah.
I'm going to, in my presidential talk tomorrow morning, I'm going to try to actually try to sort of take the steam out of your talk as much as possible. I'm kidding. But I am going to talk a little bit about how...
You've got 2 whole days for people to fail to remember what you said, right?
Yes, I know. No, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sort of how the CR Society started, which is really via Side-Out Life Extension. And you weren't around at the very beginning of this group, were you? You came in sort of late 90s. Yeah. We started it, or I started it in 93. And it was unbelievably hard to get it started. You have sort of alt.cats.siamese.puffytails, and you know, no one has any problems with that, but Side-Out Life Extension was really, really difficult. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how reflecting on what life extension really is led us to the decision to do CR and work hard on finding something better. And then I'm going to pose this question to the group. You know, what is the title of the talk is CR Society Whence and Whither. With or with an H.
Well, I think I got that.
Yeah. Well, the answer might be with or without an H. I mean, I don't know. But so I'm going to pose the question of this really difficult question. What is the reasonable expectation about when dramatically effective anti-aging therapies will be available? The answer to that question really profoundly affects what we in the CR Society do. Because if the answer is pretty darn soon, then let's start morphing into something else. If the answer is a long, long, long time from now, then the CR Society has to focus more on sort of spreading the word and starting clinics and so forth.
And of course the actual answer is one of the others. Either that or that, or something in the middle, and we happen to face that way.
Exactly. Which means we have to sort of be prepared for everything.
Exactly.
That's going to be my conclusion.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I like it. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I think probably what I'm going to do. I mean, I actually only realised like the day before yesterday the very relaxed schedule that the conference has. Where on the program it looks like I have like an hour and 3/4, and I wrote to Robert and said, I presume you don't actually want me to speak for it. And he said, no, 45, 50 minutes is fine. But even with that long, I'll probably end up having some time over. So I'll probably spend maybe 2/3 of my time actually talking about my CR pessimism ideas, and then I'll spend the rest talking about sort of what we ought to be.
Yeah, I was sort of actually assuming, because the theme of this conference was supposed to be more about sort of aging in general. That's what I had thought, but I think they sort of moved it back to its CR. I thought you were going to be speaking about nothing but sense.
Well,
but
I could. I mean, I'm sort of intending to judge this on the fly, actually, because even though it's a small audience, there's an awful lot of people here who I don't know and who I don't know how well they know what my work, and so I'm rather intending to put together a presentation that I can adjust on the fly in terms of proportion of how quickly I go through things.
Right.
If it's I'm going to be sort of trying to invite feedback a bit and see whether people want me to go into more depth of the CR pessimism side of things. And if they do and I take the time, then that's fine. And if they don't, if people seem to mainly know it already or whatever, then I'll be able to spend less time and talk more about my essay.
makes sense.
Not negative.
I always thought that
There was a study of vegetarians we were talking about that they did they put people on a very vegetable-specific diet to study certain cancers, and their cancer rates went up. And they believe it's from pesticides.
Dietary residues.
Yeah, and if you look at Wolford's study of the people in the biosphere, you look at their levels of PCBs and DEAs, which are from DDT, and they spike, like quadruple, when these guys started losing weight.
Because they start when they were
and
losing
not
weight.
insignificant numbers either.
But is those levels tied to either a source, a specific source of the pesticides or of the chemicals? In other words, were they the metabolites? Obviously, they were the metabolites of those specific pesticides. But where did the pesticides come from? Were they dietary or were they?
Cleaned up after several months, right?
No. Look at the charts. They go on for like 2 years. There's a year of elevated pesticides. That was what's so staggering. That's why he originally recommended that you don't lose weight too quickly.
Right.
But pesticide. I'm sort of obsessed about pesticides, but it's conventional produce. It's all. I mean, you can use pesticides in organic produce. You just have to use organic pesticides. They're still pesticides. You got enormous amounts of pesticide residue in fruits and vegetables. Some at levels you shouldn't. Like conventional strawberries. Mexican. Okay, so you got DDT outlawed
completely make my P53 completely downregulated to 0. I just don't think that's a good idea because I do run some and I do eat. So right now there's a debate within me about whether it's a good idea to do more with resveratrol on top of what I'm already doing. An unanswered question. I don't know. See, I run an advertising corporation. My father was a medical researcher. I was trained to defend what I do from a medical point of view since I've been a little boy. And so everything that I'm telling you now, I've had to defend before my father. And, that's what I've done. So in any case, right now, I'm having this big internal debate about resveratrol and P53 and all, and want to find more definitive answers. I don't like to go on maybes.
So here we are.
So, anyway.
So how old are you? Is that a question we can ask in this job?
Yeah, I'll be 58 this Saturday.
David? That's impressive. And you've been doing this 11 years?
12 actually, yeah. But the low glucose part is really the transformational part. That I've been doing for about 5 years. I just am amazed. It just makes a huge difference.
Do you know what your glucose levels were running when you were doing calorie restriction without that?
Yeah, I still was running in it. Could have hit hit about 120 to 130 on certain days after certain meals. You know, I thought they were healthy meals. I was wrong. I don't think they were doing me that much good, even though I was calorie restricted. It was a mistake. So, at any rate, we've become more sophisticated.
Thank you. That's all very interesting. You were right.
And then I began to realize that it's happening during about hours 16 to 18, when the brain really becomes stressed. You know, I mean, if you've been going at a low glucose for about 12 hours, things begin to happen, right? Things begin to change. A lot of people feel faint. First, I began to feel kind of weak. But then, if you look at some of the research, you'll find that the brain begins to fill in with more glucose transporters. So it can make a lot out of much less. So hypoglycemia becomes a thing of the past. It doesn't exist anymore for me. You know, like I was measuring my glucose the other day, it was 59. 59 is low. Low. I was taking this test where I was like, numbers would be flashed across the screen. And then you have to remember them backwards. And like, hey, I was way ahead of what I could do like 3 or 4 years ago. Right in the various highest percentile of people who would take that test. And I just couldn't do that. You know, so it took about a year. And then over the past 3 or 4 years, I became more sophisticated in how to bring about that kind of brain transformation thing that happens every day. And last night, for instance, I was reading the HapMap project report on the airplane, and I was like really kind of deriding myself. I was saying, you're not really remembering this. And tomorrow, when you get up, this you will have wasted 3 hours because you're tired and you're not going to really remember this. And yet this morning, when I awakened and I was in that state, I can remember all the parts and make the relationships with them. It's really, as I say, once you go there, you'll never come back. And another thing is you feel so exhilarated from it, because BDNF is like, you know, gets serotonin going. And then calorie restriction becomes easier. And it's easier to make, just say, hey, it's not going to eat after a certain time. Forgive me if I overwhelm you, but I just, you know, I mean.
Do you know how much organic stuff there is? Yeah, I checked that out. The food co-op is very good.